I should be drinking, but I'm not because I got shit to do tonight. But I feel like I need to because, wow,
I'm drinking for you, Jesse. I got
you. Thank you. Yeah, so welcome to the Film Rescue Show. I am your host, Jesse, because our Pitchmaster General, Seth, is a coward because he didn't want to do this movie today. So we have with us our horror hope.
I have Future Corpse, which is what I want to be after watching this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I have my soju on the ready. And because Case apparently unknowingly challenged me, I have my sword.
Yep. In late addition to today's episode, we have Case Aiken from Another Pass, also from the Star Trek Into Darkness episode earlier this season. How you doing, Case?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. I love talking about Highlander, and that's why I am holding my sword, or one of my swords. My office has way more weapons than you would think it should, considering the amount of nerd paraphernalia that's here. I am also sartorially prepared for this episode, wearing my Another Pass shirt. Which is actually an image of Highlander 2 in silhouette across fire, because every episode we reference this movie, because the running joke of Another Pass had always been like, there is no fixing this movie. It's unfixable. They've tried several times, so many times. There's like 5 editions of this movie, and yet they keep failing. Will never actually succeed, and so it's just been a running gag of like, it's someday in the future we'll do it. And then eventually I actually had some thoughts about how I could do it, so I'm happy to be here. But when that episode comes out, the show is done.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you can't use this joke anymore ever again after you do that.
And all right, and our guest.
Yes,
here.
And our guest today, we have returning from the Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome episode. We have Jason Lennox coming back with us. How are you today, Jason?
Guys, I'm doing great. I think this was definitely difficulty level of maximum.
Yeah.
Well beyond Mad Max 3, which I thought was a challenge. So, I must love movies, or I'm a glutton for punishment. So I'm excited to be back.
You done messed up, Ron. You done messed up.
Yeah. So we'll get into what our film is today. We're talking about Highlander 2: The Quickening, directed by Russell Mulcahy. Okay, so before we do anything, Hope, I want you to go to the Rotten Tomatoes for this film right now.
Yes, sir.
And I want you to look up the critical score for this film on Rotten Tomatoes. What does it sit at?
Oh, give me 2 seconds. I'm gonna look. You should have told me beforehand so I had it ready to go. All right, so Rotten Tomatoes, and we're gonna do Highlander 2: The Quickening. So it's at a fucking 0.
This is our first 0%er on this show. Big 0. Bagel. Nobody defends this movie. There is not a single person that defends it.
The audience score was 23.
What's wrong with you?
The audience score was a 23.
Well, I think the wild thing is that while this movie is universally panned by everyone, like no one likes this movie, there are movies that are worse, including other Highlander movies that are worse. So there's...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what was that one? Endgame, I think it was what it was called?
Endgame is real bad, but The Source is where the
entire
series
wasn't that the last one?
Yeah. It's a rough franchise that somehow gets by on a fucking kick-ass soundtrack. A first movie that's pretty good, mostly because it's so good in a way that you're like, if I had more money, I couldn't make a more interesting movie. I could make a better one, but it wouldn't be more interesting. And then a TV show that hit at just the right moment of being close enough to superhero action before we could get into like the CW phase and the oversaturation with frankly, a better actor playing the part on it.
How dare you insult Christopher Lambert?
I love Christopher Lambert, but like Adrian Paul is actually able to wield a sword convincingly. So, there's the differences there.
Well, the reason is because Christopher Lambert actually has a disorder in his eyes that he can't wear contact lenses. He can only wear glasses. So when he's fighting with those swords, he's not able to see. Yeah. He's effectively blind. So if these sword fights seem very slow, it's because he's blind.
Yeah.
He should play Zatoichi at some point. going into this film, we get a little criticism by saying that we're overly mean to movies, that we're a little cruel sometimes, that some movies are like, yeah, give it a chance, give it a break. Like, this one sits at 0%, guys. This is open season. Pull out every firearm you have.
Sword.
This is like scraping bedrock with a land mover. This is the bottom of the Marianas Trench. This is the singularity of a black hole. There is no going beneath this. So take solace in the fact that the next episode after this can only go up from here. And I want to also let you know that I specifically put this on the episode, this episode on here for this season, just to piss you all off because I knew it was awful. It was just to fuck with all of you. So with all that said, how'd you like the movie? How'd you like
ass.
it? Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
I was so confused when I started watching it because
it's weird.
Wait, pause before we go deeper. Who here had actually seen the first one? Because I like
I saw it when it came out. I saw it when I was a kid.
Okay, cool.
Theaters?
I saw it in the theater with my dad.
Damn, man, nice. Nice.
No, and I loved it. I thought it was really. Thank you, and I loved it.
Yeah, it's not a perfect movie, but it's good enough that it's like, yeah, it's pretty good.
Classic, campy '80s fantasy action.
Yeah, doing the best with what they have.
And it ended on a note that. Even as a kid, it was like there's nothing left to tell. Like the guy has won.
It was full circle. Yeah.
Yeah. So like
it's a complete narrative.
It ended completely and fully.
Yeah, and then the studio said, all that can go out the window, and then the whole franchise was kind of like there can be only one 7 times.
Yeah.
No.
Every single iteration is just that.
Hold on. Aliens.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
Aliens?
So let's go. Let's just okay. We watched the Renegade cut. I also watched the original cut as well, which is not available in print anywhere. It's only available. I only found it on YouTube, and it's like 86 minutes, something like that. It is like chopped to the bone. It's like this is the beats of a movie. Shove it out the door. The Renegade cut, they try to make it a little bit more, give you a little more investment into it. There's a ton of different cuts of this movie that exist. Even the filmmakers don't like this movie. The actors have disparaged it on multiple occasions, and the producers hated the thing. And we'll discuss why in a second. But
Sean Connery did not deserve this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean he just showed up where he's like, and he's just going
boom, he's back.
Yeah. I mean, I have a lot of thoughts into that because it is. Here's the thing that's frustrating about this movie, like. The next
Everything?
sequel.
I know.
I mean, there's a lot, but there are like little snippets of where you can see where there was potential early in the production. And you got Sean Connery in this movie in a much bigger role than he was in the first one. That theoretically is a good thing. There's strong elements there. I think Christopher Lambert with long hair is a better look than in the first movie. His weird schlub kind of design from the first movie.
The sneakers and jeans and the black and the brown jacket is like, you're the hero? Are you sure?
He had that stalker look where he's like,
he does look like a stalker.
Weird.
Yeah.
Well, he is stalking the woman in that movie if you really think about it.
Yeah, he's super creepy at the bar in the first movie where it's just like, you
Yeah.
go to the garden a lot. Yeah. Where you from? Lots of places.
Bad. Just the whole. Anywho, we're not talking about the first one.
No, we're not talking about the first one.
Yeah,
So
the first
there's
movie
potential in the
is-
first one.
yeah.
And rewatching this movie, so I watched the Renegade cut today, and it's not even the original Renegade cut. It's like the 2004 version that's available on Amazon.
That's
which has
the special edition, I
I
think,
yeah,
Oh.
exactly. But it's based on the Renegade cut in terms of it cuts out the alien part and makes it time traveling, which is slightly more consistent with the lore.
It makes it better.
It doesn't make it better. It actually makes it worse, I think, in the long run. But
Jason, you're confused. You didn't realize there was a whole other thing, did you?
Right.
You got the time travel, you got the aliens, and then you got, again, to me, where it's like, oh, and Sean Connery's not, he died, but now he's back.
Right.
So it's
there's
aliens,
so many
magic, time traveling.
You know what's
set in the future, although now, actually still the future, it's 2024 in that movie, so we're still a little bit away.
But hey, you never know. We might get there. Every element of this movie is just chuck it in the fuck it bucket. Just everything. It's just, oh, what a mess.
Didn't this film remind you guys of Free Jack? like a little bit like a dumber version of Free Jack.
I mean, it's a dumber movie. It's a dumber version of a lot of movies.
Yeah, I mean, the thing in this movie, it's a movie blender, but nothing blends correctly.
Yeah.
It's like, well, Blade Runner, that came out. Let's pull from that. Dark fantasy from like Return to Oz, Never Ending Story. Let's pull from that. It's like, it just feels like this hodgepodge of random crap.
Yep.
Like whatever's popular. Like, oh, let's do that. Cyberpunk. Sure, why not?
The Green Goblin's glider.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Well, he's fighting the Green Goblin and Vulture because it's the glider, and then also someone with a jetpack with wings.
It looks like Vulture. Yeah, man. This is a.
There's some weird stuff going on, but like also it's got John C. McGinley in it, like who is like just delightfully the same John C. McGinley that we're used to, and somehow
global warming.
Well, that's okay. Like you can see the zeitgeist that goes into the whole thing. Like this is
in the 1990s, there was a hole in the ozone layer. And so they were like, well, this is let's pull from this. Right. This might be interesting for a story. It's like, that's the kernel of an idea that you could work with there. That he's gained this knowledge and power from the first movie. He can use it to fix this major world-ending problem, and it backfires. Okay, there's a kernel of a story. Now, make the other 99% work, and it doesn't.
What I will say is that Russell Mulcahy is an interesting director, visually speaking.
Yeah. He was a music video director.
Right, exactly. That's why Queen did the whole soundtrack for the first movie, because he had connections with them, because he did their music videos. Like, I think that visually speaking, especially when he's given big spaces to play with, he has very interesting camera work. Rewatching this movie in the Renegade cut today, there's a lot of footage that was removed from the theatrical cut that are really good establishing shots of places that they're in. There's really cool camera work going on there. All the sequences are interesting, and frankly, the production values, bad though they may be, are so much better than the follow-up movie. It's like almost insulting that this movie is the one that has like some elements of like, oh, they actually kind of knew what they were doing on.
Mini-Me's already bored back there.
He's ready.
But in terms of,
he's like, he's yawning. He's like, just let me get to the action.
Like compare McKay, compare him with The Shadow. Like The Shadow is a visually interesting depiction of New York. Like there's really cool ways of depicting this like urban environment, even though that movie is grossly flawed. Are you talking
about the Alec Baldwin Shadow movie
that McKay directed like 3 years later, and like you can see that from there he's like going into this direction of like not doing a lot of like. He did like the direct-to-video sequel to The Scorpion 2, for example. Like,
this movie really beat him into the pavement.
This lot. And then the Shadow as the follow-up for it, like kind of like derailed whatever career he was building. And like the first one had like a good setup for him getting into kind of a cool position. Watching the Renegade cut, there's a lot of sequences that do interesting transitions between like doors opening to a flashback and things like that. Like there's doing a lot of stuff that's like very cool. And there's good ideas going on there that were executed horribly and don't make any sense. And the franchise going on further makes it even worse because it makes less and less sense the more you're invested in the franchise. Because everything since then has been like, ignore that movie. Completely ignore that movie. And, and it makes it confusing. Like, I came from the show.
It makes the entire first movie non-existent.
I mean, at least it happened, but yes, it does make a lot. It's very confusing, but again,
it undoes the entire back half of the
everything
movie.
Has to though. The show also did that. When I first watched the original Highlander movie, I assumed it didn't end with like the last immortal. I assumed that allowed for there to be more out there, and then I was like, oh wait, never mind. This is a complete story. And then let's have 5 seasons of a TV show.
But I mean, the production of this movie was just flawed right from the get-go because they filmed in Argentina and the economy collapsed or something like that. Yeah, the entire economy of the country collapsed. So there's problem number one.
Yeah, like
problem number two, they had a stipulation in their contract with the distributors and production company that if they went over budget by even $1, the distributors would reclaim control of the film. So they immediately went over budget, and so just the boneheaded producers took over control, and this is what you got. So any kind of massive issue you could have with a film production happened on this movie. I'm sure they went in with good intentions, but it's just isn't making movies magical.
It's a kind of magic.
So, yeah, it's kind of magic. Yeah. So, Hope, you have to compliment this movie somehow.
Got you.
Dig.
I'm sorry, I just read what Jason said.
So Jason typed in the chat, Mini-Me went outside to play in the rain. We failed. That's how boring this movie is. Even talking about it, you're kind of like, oh, God, fuck it.
I actually have a compliment after we torture Hope. I have one good
Okay, yeah. Hope, you have to dig.
Hey.
Dig.
God damn it. Okay.
Come on, you can get it out. Get it out.
I got this. I promise. Okay, so as dumb as it was, I low-key loved, like, the montage sequence of when Juan Villalobos is getting his suit done.
Yeah, it's a very fun
when he did
sequence.
his suit tailor. Yeah, it's fun, yeah. Did they change the music like 3 times in every cut or something like that?
Nothing else, I could take that and just play it for the entirety of the movie and I would be okay. Like, if that was the full movie, I would be okay.
Sure.
Just him screwing around, drinking, getting suit done. Boom. I'm okay with that. That's my compliment. That's my compliment.
Okay. Jason, your turn.
So, this sounds really corny, but so there's things that I just enjoy from when I was younger, and I really have a soft spot for kind of like early 90s practical special effect films. And the corny scene with the 2 kind of cyberpunk guys on their like flying scooters reminded me of Johnny Mnemonic, The Crow, Dark City, Free Jack.
Yeah.
And it just kind of made me feel good. Like it'd be like seeing one of you and being like, oh, hey, there's Hope at the store. Cool. I know someone at the store. So now, you know what I mean? Or, hey, there's Case, there's Jesse at Target. It would seem a little cooler, but it doesn't make the store better, but it would make me feel better.
Yeah.
So that kind of reminded me of like the Batman. You know what I mean? Just kind of like that.
Now, Jason, to piggyback off of that, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Did you also think that the one of the 2 guys you're talking about in that scene, did you also think that his laugh sounded like Salacious Crumb's laugh?
Yep.
God damn it, Hope.
Yeah.
That's all I could think about when he's like...
it was.
God damn it.
So that's my only compliment. Like, I love John C. McGinley. I thought he was terrible in this film. I love Michael Ironside. I just watched Total Recall the other day, and I love him in a lot of other things. I hated him in this. So I didn't even
Give
like
me Starship Troopers, Michael Ironside.
Yeah.
I mean, like, so even those actors, like Michael Ironside seemed like a dumber version of Kurgan, just kind of like, let's ratchet up the extreme where he's just like, I'm hurting people. Kurgan at least seemed to like, he was evil and made sense, whereas Ironside in this one just seemed to be literally, I'm bad and I'm hurting people. Whereas like Kurgan to me seemed to make a lot of sense. It seemed like a kind of a well thought out villain, whereas it was like they didn't learn anything from that.
Yeah, it's weird because like Katana is like supposed to be this kind of like fascist dictator type character, and his portrayal in this movie, especially when he comes to Earth, is this sort of puckish anarchic figure, which makes sense for Kurgan. Kurgan has been living on Earth completely devoid of any needs, really. Like he can live forever. So and like he's big and strong and able to just take what he wants all the time. He's a barbarian who has continued to exist to the modern day. And you're like, okay, I get this character. Katana behaves the same way and makes jokes that are like cultural references. None of that makes sense for this character.
Yeah, he's not of this planet. Why is he saying that?
Last stop.
He doesn't, he doesn't know what a train is.
That's like, my only positive, is just that it kind of reminded me of things that I liked when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
In one scene.
That's fair.
Okay.
Well, that was like also when Sean Connery. I don't know why it bugged me so much, but the scene where they're driving to like the main headquarters or whatever, and he's like, "Hit it, dude!" I'm like, "When did you learn, dude?"
Yeah, when they're driving the Max security prison.
I was like, when did you learn this?
I mean, they do have a running thread of the movie of him like picking up modern phrases, like shithead's the first one, and then like kind of goes from there. I found that specific spot kind of cute. Like we
kind of reminds me of what's that thing that Connor used to do? You're the man now. Yeah. It's like reminds me of that.
I mean, he's like as a character, I'm happy to have Ramirez back from the standpoint of Connery is incredibly charming just as an actor. The scene on the plane, I forget how, like, again, I rewatched the Renegade Cut more recently, so like what the differences between the two. But like he's flirting with the woman next to him, and it's like really funny, like that whole bit, like he's whispering in her ear, and like that's straight up Connery in a way that I'm like, I appreciate all of this. Is there headcanon reasons for why he's back in this movie? Yes. Should he be necessarily like also on the cover of the box art? Not necessarily.
No.
But I get it. He's the biggest star in the movie at this point.
Is it fair to say, and this is another thing I was thinking about, where it's like sometimes I think with creative endeavors, especially movies, and I will call this like the lightning in a bottle thing, and like I will use another film that reminded me of Highlander is Ghostbusters. I think Ghostbusters is one of those smash hit films that like just everything worked. The casting, like a popular soundtrack, and it just worked. And no matter how hard different people have tried to repackage that bizarre magic of that first film, can't do it.
Yeah.
And I think Highlander, very much like Ghostbusters to me, and so it was like, wow, you guys hit it with this Queen soundtrack, kind of this, wild casting, this kind of cool, like I love kind of like the old Scotland thing. So it's kind of, you got this Scottish movie with Highlanders fighting, but it's magic. And there was all this cool stuff. And then it was like, cool, you hit some crazy trick shot. And then it's like, do it again. And it's like, and then it's like, man, whoever, whatever you had in the first one, like that was like, it would be like me, beating an NBA player on one shot. And then the next million times it's a complete failure. But I did it one time.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly impressive that the first movie is as good as it is. It had such a tiny budget. It had so many production issues that they had such a hard time getting a lead to play the part. And they were just like that they had to settle on a person that they never even met, who they came over. And he didn't speak English at the time.
Which is why the performance is a little awkward.
Right, they have to write in this whole, like, you talk funny, Nash, where are you from? Lots of different places. Like, they had to, like, allow for the French accent for this character, and they had to phonetically teach him some of his lines.
Thing about, I mean, how I always thought one of the most powerful things of the first film was so sad, where there's the lady he falls in love with that she just gets old and dies, and like that was very poignant for like a science fiction action film. And even the storyline, which might have been in the extended cut, not in the theatrical cut, where he saves a young woman from like the Nazis, and then that's like his older.
Oh yeah.
Oh, the Rachel, Rachel.
Yeah, that's the original cut. That's the original.
Well, there's the flashback to the Nazis is not in the theatrical cut. The character is there and they talk about it, but they don't actually show that one sequence.
Right.
But
you're right.
Yeah, the first one also has a bunch of versions, although they're nowhere near as like dramatically different.
So I mean, to me, it's like that first film was just like, again, it's just wow, you did some perfect thing, and then to like do it again. And the second film was just kind of like we had Sean Connery. I know we killed him, but here he's at a clothing store getting suits, and aliens, time travel, but Highlander, Scotland, we like Kurgan, so here's Michael Ironside being even crazier. And it's just like everything that they tried to re-pull out from that original, like it all worked, was just like it wasn't lightning in a bottle. It's like the bottle broke. With lightning.
They made this giant shield to be the bottle, and then they have lightning bouncing off of it to be like, here's the lightning in a bottle, and they couldn't make it happen. Here's the bigger issue with this movie, though. Why?
Okay.
The first movie, the whole thing about
ellipses,
the whole thing about why the movie functions is that the characters all have the stated goal that we have to understand is a pathological desire that is innate within them to fight to the death, to the last person, like the first one. That's the reason why this conflict is occurring, and there are societal factors driving it further because there's a potential power, and there's the danger of someone who immortal with all that power, like the Kurgan. So like there's a strong reason for it to exist. There's a reason for the characters to interact the way that they do under the rules that are laid out. That all makes sense. This movie has the situation where the henchmen of Katana say, why are you doing this? He's going to die soon anyway. And then it's like, it's so hard to find good help, and they never address it. Like, the Renegade Cut slightly increases the reason of him, like, just really fucking hating McLeod and being like, no, I have to, like, I really wanted to execute this guy. And, like, I watched this back to back with a rewatch of The Thin Blue Line, where it's also where in that scenario it's like, oh yeah, the Dallas Police Department is like really has an axe to grind. They really want to execute a person for this thing, even if it's the wrong person. So there's a vibe of like, okay, I get that a little bit.
That's a weird way of kind of connecting those two together.
Well, okay. I mean, it was a weird it's a weird double feature right there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's a weird double feature. Like going from Highlander 2 to Thin Blue Line.
Other way around, but
sure.
Yeah.
Other way around.
So I was already primed for that kind of like motive. But the point stands that regardless of if it's the future or if it's Zeist going to Earth, like the situation of McLeod is he is now old, dying in a world that is a hellscape, and there's no reason to do anything. Like, no matter what axe you have to grind with him, unless it's way more personal than what we're given to see, there's no logic to go to Earth to try to kill him, especially now. Like, it's been 40 years.
Why'd you wait 25 years to do this?
So I want to talk about something Aliens. That I had messaged Jesse about.
Aliens.
So I'm a huge anime nerd, and in 2007, Madhouse Studios was commissioned to do a Highlander anime. And
I want to talk about this. Yes.
So anything that Madhouse does, I try to buy. And
because Madhouse is a genius.
When that came out, I was curious, like, what it was going to be. Right? Would it be a sequel, prequel, whatever? And I think the anime did the smart thing where they basically took the Highlander premise. There can be only one. There's these people that live forever, right? And they have to cut each other. So the rules of the game are there. And then they just started from scratch, and the movie goes from like ancient Rome to World War I to like a cyberpunk future, and it's like 88 minutes. And because they have a fresh slate, they could just tell a Highlander story, right? Yeah. With just, okay, the whole Zeist time travel, like, we're done. Like, the original 86 film to me told a complete story, and the only people that got it right in real life as a redo to me was the anime, because it was like, let's just scratch it, redo it. And they got to tell cyberpunk. There was robots and cyborgs when they went to ancient Greece. And I remember at one point in the film, the main villain's going to kill the hero, but he falls down in Stonehenge. Well, that's a holy site, so he can't kill him.
Can't kill him, yeah.
The anime to me worked just because they just were like, we like the concept, let's just redo it. And, again, it was like now they're in ancient Rome and they're in the far future. So it was kind of like, after I watched Highlander 2, I was like, yeah, I get wanting to put Highlander in the future. Like the two guys on the little zip boards was kind of corny. But like if you watch, the Highlander anime, like they kind of got it and they had fun putting that character that was like he's a barbarian fighting the Romans to now he's fighting cyborgs in some kind of dystopian Blade Runner future. So like that worked.
So what you're saying is the fix for Highlander 2 is just watch the anime.
But to be clear, the anime and not the animated series.
It's free on YouTube.
Yeah, I think Jesse, we were chatting about, he's like, so the solution might be just to take the Highlander anime.
Just take that. Just do it.
Like, here, there you go. There's problem solved. That's the solution.
I actually have some thoughts. I have some thoughts about how this could have worked better. It's not like a full pitch, but I do think that from the standpoint of when this movie was made, with so little lore going into it, and trying to do a sequel as opposed to a remake or anything, because it's only the immediate next movie with the same actors. Like,
there's a lot of lore that's never really explained. Like, where did the immortals come from? Why is holy ground a place you can't fight? Is it ever really explained? No, at least not at this point. It's never explained. Why is
there a Scottish man from Egypt who is working for Spain who says he's not Scottish but clearly has a Scottish accent?
Yeah, all these things are never explained.
Why did the African guy who was an immortal, why was he okay with Colin McLeod and didn't try to kill him? And
they were like best buddies.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of makes sense. Yeah. Like they say in that movie, like, eventually it will come down to it, but there's definitely higher priorities. Like, there's a certain agreement that a lot of immortals have, because like Ramirez could have killed McLeod too.
Yeah,
that
isn't that one of the isn't that the way in which they got rid of Connor McLeod is that Duncan has to execute him and take his power, and he willingly sacrifices himself or something like that.
And like the first movie is intentionally vague when they're like, "Why are we immortal?" It's like, "Well, why does the sun rise?" It's like the follow up line to it, and like that's kind of cheeky and nice. And it's like, "Why don't we fight on holy ground?" It's tradition, is what they say. Like there's whatever sort of like larger framework, this like secret society of immortals, moving slowly through the centuries that they like set up at the opening. Side note: that was recorded in a bathroom by Connery on the phone.
They were really scraping the bottom of the barrel with money on that first one.
And the second one's also rough and way more of a clusterfuck. But it like the first movie got away with everything by being incredibly vague, and this movie tried to be very specific to the point where it was never recorded. But in the original script, there is a line explaining their immortal lifespan, where they say that on Earth one day on Zeist is equivalent to 1 year on Earth. And so that when they are reborn, they will age to the age that they were transported from Zeist to Earth to. And then at that point, every day will just be 1 year for them. Or every year will just be a day for them, effectively. Except for Connor, who then has given up his immortality and yada, yada, yada.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. It's a weird movie. They're trying to explain a lot, and it doesn't make any sense. And it makes even less sense.
They should have just left it alone.
Can they also explain how much why Connor was a hoe bag?
In that, as soon as he became young again, he was like, "My dick works."
He's like, "I don't know this person. She's trying to go after me."
She's a literal terrorist.
Oh yeah.
Forgot that was another just kind of.
Why?
I was hurting watching that. I'm like, she's supposed to be like this very rebel, gung-ho, very self-assured person, and then she's like,
and she bowed down to him real fast.
Yeah.
I forgot. Wow.
I was like,
well, I think
what?
The Renegade Cut has a line explaining it a little bit, which is that she's like, "I used to idolize you when I was a kid," because like McLeod's supposed to be like this hero saving the world.
Fuck.
Yeah.
I can idolize anybody, but I'm not going to jump their... I'd have more questions, first off. Like, how did you de-age like 30 fucking years?
Yeah, why does becoming immortal again mean you lose your age?
None of it makes sense.
Why did he get old?
Fuck it! Let's start with that.
Well, I mean,
all right. We're okay. No, go ahead, Jason.
It's progeria.
Again, for being vague, it was just like, here's some simple rules. There's immortals, this guy, and they're in this thing, and holy ground, and it just worked.
Yeah,
and, like,
it's dark fantasy like Dark Crystal or Labyrinth. Like there's not really a deep lore. It's like it's just enough to get the story going.
Yeah.
Well, original Star Wars trilogy. Hey, there's the Force. There's good users and bad users, and you're just
that's it. That's all you need.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's all we need to know. And, I always felt the Force got dumber as they tried to define more of it.
Midichlorians!
Yeah, like it would just work when it's like...
Like, that honestly was the one thing I liked about the later sequel Star Wars movies. Last Jedi starts it, but actually Rise of Skywalker even does it well. It's like the one thing I like about that movie, where there's so many things that it's just perspective. Like the fight where they're in the two different rooms is so cool because it allows the Force to be kind of vague and weird again, instead of just psychic powers because you have special blood.
Wait, what was that? I'm having a hard time remembering.
Rise of Skywalker, there's this one scene where Rey is on the Ren is on the planet and Rey is up on the ship, or vice versa. I forget.
Is that where they destroy the statue of Vader?
Yeah, and they're having the whole fight, but they're in two different rooms, but they're somehow having a lightsaber. Like, that's actually a cool sequence because it makes it so weird and allows the Force to be like, size matters not, because it's all perspective. It's all whatever way you interact with things. That's cool. It's making it vague again in a way that, like, I kind of wish this movie allowed stuff to be vague again.
Yeah. Well. Okay, we're all chomping at the bit. Let's get into the negatives. All right, Jason.
I thought we were
You're
already
starting.
In the negatives.
We're trying.
So is this negatives, or should we try to fix it? Because
blast out the thing that pissed you off the most with this thing. Both barrels. I don't care.
The fact that I was, as a viewer, I was absolutely confused when I thought I was watching a film that was halfway. It was like kind of like guys in a desert running around screaming. And then it was like some kind of weird, like, science fiction trial, and I was so confused as to what was going on. The part where Sean Connery showed up, I put my head in my hands. That was just dumb. I hate when characters come back to life for no reason.
And then he just died again.
I hated time travel. I hated McGinley's acting and character. I hated Ironside's. I just didn't like anything. I hated how it ended. I hated the age shifting. I forgot to Hope's point about kind of the weird sexual part of the film. I hated that. I hated the whole ozone layer thing. It just seemed so corny.
Save some shit for us, dude.
I just hated everything about. I hated everything. I felt angry watching it. Yeah, I hated the whole thing.
Okay. So Hope, your turn.
Copy.
Oh, God damn it.
But no, but like honestly, it's just what really bugged me, I think, the most is the fact that everything just went out the window completely. You know, there's this whole thing where I would like to have seen why more so when him and his like scientist friend, you know, created this thing, but then they're just like halfway through they just gave up. Like, okay, well, everybody else can take care of it. We did the hard part. And I'm like, no, like, you still need to monitor this shit. Like, if someone's on a project like that and you're not the CEO, they were like the scientists, and you just gave up? Like, no scientist would ever just give up their project, give up their baby.
On a world-altering project.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, not like you're growing a plant in your backyard. This is
right.
like the whole world.
Oh,
like
I crossbred, grapes to make cotton candy grapes. Woo. Like, who gives a fuck? But, like, this is a world-altering project, and these scientists just gave it up. And I'm like, no, you don't do that. Every scientist on the planet is, like, just cringing at that. Like, I know it's not like science, but like still, like, you don't just say, well, I did my job and like fuck off. You go in, routinely test, you update this shit. Again, it's not like they were like a CEO and something like, and they backed it with money. No, like, so
yeah. So we have a set of complaints, seconded, all in favor, agreed.
I want to dig into the one that pissed me off the most. Fucking aliens. You motherfuckers. This is what you went with.
Aliens.
This is
aliens.
So, okay, so the original cut of this movie, the way in which they explain the immortals is what they were. They were aliens from a planet called Zeist. Number one, fuck you. Number two, why?
Zeist.
Number three, what does this do for the story? If you take that out of the movie, it doesn't change the movie.
No.
So it doesn't add anything to it.
No.
I think they're dealing with...
This is what happens when you let boneheaded producers take over a production.
The thing is, they're dealing with the same problem that every Highlander entry outside of the reboot that is the anime, and then the potential reboot that we're going to see down the line with Henry Cavill, if that actually happens.
Chad Stahelski, oh, he can't fuck it up. Like, there's no way. Like,
every single one. The problem is that the first movie is a total story, and not just like, oh, this is the story, but like, this is the story, and all the lore wraps up with this moment.
You're done.
He won. He achieved the goal, the everything. Like, there is nothing.
Right. The only, because like then if you look at the third one, which also has a bunch of versions and a bunch of different titles, so it's like the Sorceress, the Master of Illusions, Final Dimension. Final Dimension is the version that like I saw it as like on the box art back in the day, but like all those different names. That one has to deal with the same situation, except where that one is Highlander 2, the alternate movie basically, and in it it's there were some immortals that were trapped inside a cave this whole time and they got free, like, which
but it's basically just a carbon copy,
right down to the whole point that like the Russell Nash character is being like investigated by the police the whole time. Like the whole movie is
that's one negative I would absolutely give the first one. That whole investigation that the cops are doing in the first movie, that just gets abandoned like halfway through the film. It's just gone.
I mean, mostly because he lies with Brenda. Like again, the first movie is not perfect, but they're working with the best they can. The thing is the third movie is just like beat for beat going off the same thing, and has to deal with the fact that all the immortals are dead except for Connor. So they have to like be like, oh, here it is again. And you end up with the situation of Highlander 3 being like Ghostbusters 2 or any one of these movies where the sequels are coming out when pop culture has caught on to it. Like Highlander 3 came out when the TV show was on, and so they tried to make it more like the TV show, just like the way Ghostbusters 2 was more like the cartoon, the real Ghostbusters.
A more modern version would be kind of like maybe John Wick Chapter 2, because John Wick became super popular, and John Wick Chapter 2 is a good film, but it's not as good as the first one.
Right, but it doesn't have to deal with like being like
film.
made family friendly in a way. Like God, can you imagine if this movie came out after, again, the animated series from the 90s where they don't kill each other because they all had to like figure out a way that we could have a kid-friendly animated series where there's no one dying. And in that one, Quentin MacLeod
that was a thing
just gets oaths from people.
That was the thing. Like every major like R-rated movie would get like a cartoon show. Like Rambo had a cartoon series for a bit.
RoboCop.
RoboCop. Yeah.
So this movie is
Jason loves the shit. Jason loves to send me like old trailers for old cartoon shows. I love seeing those.
Yeah, or like the Toxic Avenger. Like there's so many fun cartoons from the time that are based on like incredibly violent movies.
Yeah.
No, that was the thing when I was a kid, where it was like you said, like RoboCop. I remember Rambo. Yeah. It was like Rambo and the Forces of Freedom, and it was like the original film was about a veteran dealing with PTSD and how he's ill-treated by society as a veteran.
Yeah.
And now it's like, let's go American fight as a cartoon to hype up kids. So that was,
let's team up with the Taliban and go.
Oh God.
I mean,
man.
So this movie is dealing with this general problem of it. One thing that we haven't talked about, and it's different depending on which version you watch. Every version prior to the special edition that came out in 2004, everything is colored goddamn red. Like that's why, like that.
Yeah, they changed the color
to blue, which is a much better thing on your eyes. Like I like the red. Like the red as a screen is like kind of interesting, but like it made every scene painful. That's why the Connery at the tailor shop is like one of the few good scenes, because it's not such like this painful red.
It's normal interior lighting.
Because like every place they go to has these giant windows. Like every shot is set up that way, as a result, the entire movie, regardless of if it's day or night, always has this red glow to it, and they got rid of that. Thank God.
Yeah. If I could. No, go ahead.
I want to ask the group a question, and this is reminding me of something that I just went through with Matrix. I hated the Matrix sequels a lot when they came out.
Every one of them ended up on Film Rescue. We agree.
And I hadn't watched the original Matrix in years, and my 11-year-old was like, hey, Dad, can we watch Matrix? And I was like, yeah. And I hadn't, my anger had subsided, so we just threw it on, and I watched the Matrix with a fresh set of eyes. And I was like, you know what? I remember why I liked The Matrix. It's a great standalone film.
Mm-hmm.
Standalone.
And listening to this discussion, I'm like, yeah, really, Highlander, the more I think of it, is kind of like The Matrix, where it's like, I wasn't as mad about, I was never mad about the Highlander sequels because I was never invested in them. But I was with The Matrix, and I do think from just this conversation that the Highlander and The Matrix are definitely kind of in that. You have these standalone stories that basically end, and then people are trying to tack more stuff on and explain stuff.
But also, Jason, just like you said, the Highlander had an anime. The Matrix had the Animatrix.
And the Animatrix was great. It was a fun
Yes.
kind of offbeat. Yeah, right. And Madhouse did one of the animations in that. They did the simulation one. So it was over and over done.
There you go. And the Animatrix is not made for kids. It's still in the vein of it being for adults. Yeah. So, I remember describing this. I'll say I have one compliment. In terms of getting bigger in scale, they did. It's bigger. Like it is a sequel. It's bigger. It's bigger sets. It's bigger expanse. And not everything looks great.
No.
But I will say it has a style, and it went bigger than the first film.
The flashbacks are either interstellar or like deep time, as opposed to just like a couple hundred years. Like that's bigger. They travel across the world. That's certainly bigger.
I mean, that exterior set where they have the fight between the discount members of Masters of the Universe, it looks big. It's a big fight. It's kind of impressive. There's a lot of effort put into it. It's not a great fight at all, but it's just I can appreciate.
Yeah, choreography is not good in these movies, which is a shame because it's a sword fight movie.
Never been.
But again, McKay, I think, has a really good eye for like set pieces and like cool visuals. Like one thing I do actually rather like, and this goes back to Jason's point, I think that the model work in this movie is really good. Like most of the giant like buildings that they show look pretty good. Like obviously there's like we're all so jaded by CG at this point that like whenever it's a model, like I recently rewatched Superman 4 and I was like, oh yeah, the model work's not that bad. The inserted like effects are terrible, but like the compositing's awful. But like every time that there's like a shot of like a satellite or something, it's like, oh, that doesn't actually look that bad. And it's you can still see that it's just a toy on a string. And like in this movie, you can see that the flying guys have strings. Like there's so many shots where the guy with the jetpack, you can just see the wires.
There's shots in the original movie when he finally achieves the ultimate gift at the end of the film, and he's spinning around in the air. You can see the wires that are holding up Jason Lambert. Jason Lambert. Sorry, Christopher Lambert. You can see, God damn it. You can see the wires holding him up. There's always been a little bit of a cheapness to the first film, and the second film they tried a little bit better, but it's still not great. But it's
I mean, the cities look interesting. I think there is a through line between the two movies that we haven't really talked about, which is the declining society that Connor is living in. Like modernity is distinctly not good in the first Highlander movie. Like while he's got like these antiques and stuff he's collected, he has seen horrible things, and New York City is pretty gross. Like it's very much in line with like a Warriors style. Like it's very 80s in its depiction of New York, where it's like a complete hellhole that everyone is like, there's gang violence and there's like all these awful people. And if you go with the perspective of idyllic Scottish countryside to 80s New York to 2024, wherever the hell it's supposed to be,
Gotham.
Let's just call it Gotham City. It's just fine.
It really was. I got Gotham aesthetics from that whole thing.
In not bad ways.
If Batman showed up in this movie, I'd be like, yeah, fine.
But that's actually like, it doesn't look bad in that regard. It's the same way that like Tim Burton's Gotham is this over the top kind of city space that has this camp quality to it in that gothic camp kind of way. This has that like cyberpunk kind of gothic camp thing. Building off of that. And I think that his presentation of the world they're in, every set they go into is either rundown corporate or rundown like the church or like the space that like Katana goes into, where there's like lots of dirt, there's grime, there's like everything's raining. The opera at the beginning, like I forgot that in the opera, like there's leaks all over the place because everything is falling apart in this world.
Oh, yeah.
The Renegade cut goes into some sequences where they have like oxygen machines because the atmosphere is so shitty. Like I think that the world they're creating,
which is now a thing. There is literally a thing. I think it's in China. You can purchase clean oxygen.
So
tanks.
It's
like we're living in dystopia, guys. The planet's falling apart.
In 2024.
Right.
One more year, guys.
So in those regards, it's not like there's at least an interesting perspective that the director is bringing, even if the movie is an unsuccessful one.
Yeah. I remember I mentioned this in our Discord. I mentioned this to Hope and Seth. Seth, you asshole, you're not here. I really could use your insight into like cleaning up how to explain the plot of this movie. I love it when he does synopses of plots. I described this to Hope as Billie Eilish throwing up inside of a Hot Topic filled with Blade Runner merchandise. That's what it felt like to me. It's like it's the aesthetic of all those things just jammed into one fucking shit sandwich. And none of it fits.
Yeah, I just sat there dumbfounded when he said that. Because I had no idea how to take that. And
that's exactly why it works, because that's exactly what the movie is. Because everyone here is confused by the movie itself.
I love Billie Eilish, I love Blade Runner, and I like Hot Topic so much.
Exactly. That's what I say. All these things are good as in and of themselves alone. They don't work together. I don't need Blade Runner and aliens and time travel and immortals. I don't need them all together.
Like a little bit of Dune because it's like the Desert Planet Fighters and then Virginia Madsen shows up.
Oh, God. Yeah, it's fucking Dune, isn't it? Oh, God damn it. Where's a fucking sandworm when you need one?
What were you saying, Jason?
How cheap is it when aliens are just like, hey, I'm an alien from another planet, and it's like if we're gonna have aliens, like it's so cheap, like.
And there's no differentiation of their biology. There's they have no special abilities or anything. It's just I'm
an alien, guys. Boop, here I am in a house. It's so cheap. It's so lazy.
And they can easily transport there like that. It's no problem.
We've been talking about this a lot lately in multiple movies, multiple TV shows, and multiple settings. Like throughout all times for media, how there's so many instances where aliens have gotten lazy. Like it's in here, it's in modern, it's how hard is it to just throw on a really quick silicone prosthetic?
Well,
they did it every day in Star Trek whenever they did shit.
I mean, the thing is that this movie, if you're going off of the assessment that the reason that they're immortal is that they are aliens and that they are not identifiably different from humans already, then you are going off of a concept of like, oh, they're aliens that look like humans. If that's the direction you're going with it.
Then why do aliens care about like our traditional religious institutions?
Yeah, no, it gets weird.
You.
That doesn't make any sense.
It gets worse the more you think
thoughts.
about it. Just...
I have thoughts. How you can... Right.
We all have thoughts. Right?
I'll say this: my thoughts on how you can make this movie better actually start from the standpoint of they wanted to do aliens.
Burning it.
Okay.
And if we're in a good spot for it, I'll throw the like that sort of like laundry list out there if we're ready to go.
I mean, well, we'll get to the pitch in a second. I mean, let's just wrap up with some final thoughts. Okay, so this is proclaimed as being one of the worst films ever made.
100%.
For good reason. It's broken in almost every conceivable level. Like the characters don't have arcs. The story is broken. They've had to re-edit this thing 5 times. They cut out the original ending where he dematerializes and then flies off back to Zeist or something Virginia like Madison. That. Yeah. Oh God. Okay. So just in terms of this franchise, considering the notoriety of how bad this is it kind of like the Star Wars Holiday Special? Should you at least brave it even once?
Yeah. I own it, and I wouldn't own this.
Okay, so that's 2 yeses and a no. I would say it's worth watching it once just so the rest of the series is on an upward trajectory.
I will say this, and again, as a big anime collector, I can't quite remember the name of it because it's so bad, it's escaping my brain. I recently saw an anime that I would say was the worst anime ever made, and I watched it completely, and I've told some of my friends, Violence Jack, that's what it is.
Okay.
That I want to keep it to establish a baseline of like, this is the bedrock of the worst of the genre.
Mm.
So I do think there is merit in watching things that are really bad just to establish. We always like, what's the best movie? What's the best Western? What's the best science fiction? Yeah. I think in some cases it is good to say this is the bedrock of the worst of the worst of a genre.
Yeah.
Right? So
there is merit to watching crap.
Yeah, and Violence Jack. Violence Jack could be the. I was actually offended watching it, and I almost threw it out. But then
Jesus Christ.
I was like, I kind of want to keep this, and if you guys ever want to watch Violence Jack and review it with me, we can do that.
Jason, done. I'm with you.
Have you seen it, or do you want to watch it?
I've heard of it. I've not yet braved it, but I've heard of it.
I just knew it existed, but it kind of reminds me a lot of this, where it's like the worst of a genre, where it's like, if you like sci-fi, right? Sci-fi, fantasy, it very well could be that Highlander 2 is like the creative bedrock, kind of like I'm saying Violence Jack. My vote for worst anime is Violence Jack. And you're just kind of like, so I would encourage people to, I'm glad I watched it. I'm glad Jesse got me to watch it, because it was just like, this is creative bedrock. I'm now at the bottom of the mine. There, and I'm just kind of like, So now, like, everything else I can judge above it. So
Yeah.
but Hope, I'll do Violent Shack. I'll rewatch it with you, and then we could even do a live watch.
I was about to say, we need to do a live watch of that.
It is like, honestly, it is real. I mean, it is horrendous. Like it was embarrassing to watch.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it offended me as a viewer, and I'm very rarely offended. So we'll just stop the Violence Shack discussion there. But it is horrendous.
Hope, I'm guessing the movie you were going to suggest as being the worst anime would be Tales of Earthsea. Was that going to be it?
No, not at all. No.
What was it going to be?
Well, there's like this. I'm trying to pull up the name. I'm trying to think of it. It's like a notorious anime that's like dubbed over. It's like High School. Hold on.
High School of the Dead?
No, it's not High School of the Dead.
One.
No,
that's
it's not High School of the Dead. But there's like a lot of killing and stuff in it. It's like, hold on.
It doesn't narrow it down.
It's an anime set in a high school. There's a lot of people who die.
Killing. Powers.
It was. I'll get to it eventually, and I'll like scream it out at the end.
Yeah,
like,
scream it out.
Once I find what it is, I'll figure out what it is. But
my vote is people should watch. If you like this kind of movie, right?
Yeah,
I think you should watch it at least once.
Just as a cautionary tale of like, this is how bad.
But that's
it can
the
get.
thing.
It's
not the worst Highlander movie.
When people
like that, I think we need to like that.
Oh no!
That I think we need to emphasize here, which is that like
Yeah, the Source
I think
and
this
Endgame
movie
are
is
pretty bad.
I think that there's a lot. Like, I think when this movie came out, it was the worst Highlander movie. The problem is, like, they have gone worse.
Went lower.
I think that this movie is a lot like the first half of Power Rangers Turbo.
Ghost Stories.
There we go.
Oh, that's the movie. That's the movie. I don't know what that is.
It's a show,
but okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, like,
okay.
I was saying this movie is a lot like the first half of Power Rangers Turbo, the season of Power Rangers, not Turbo the Power Rangers movie, although also kind of in part of that whole thing, which was that at the time, it was the worst thing that had been done with that franchise at that point. It has since gotten, there has been worse. There's also been a lot better, like for Power Rangers. But looking back on it with the perspective of history, and being able to be like, oh, this is the original cast. There's like things going on that I enjoy about it from this era of production, even if it is really bad, and that there is more good to come. So I'm less bitter about how bad it was at the time, and that there's also worse. So I know, like, I have a better barometer in terms of where it could possibly go. Because with Power Rangers, you've got RPM and Operation Overdrive. RPM, the high water mark, Operation Overdrive, the low water mark for the series. So you can be like, oh, that's cool. And the season even gets better when they flip out the cast. This movie, Highlander 2, is a bad movie, but you know what? It's the second best Highlander movie with Christopher Lambert. It's the second best Highlander movie with Sean Connery. And I mean,
that's not
it's not saying much, but what I'm saying is that, like, well, yeah, Endgame is worse. And like the attempts at reconciling the continuities between the Highlander movies and the TV show have always been difficult and weird. And when you get to The Source, it is just a terrible movie that is barely related to the franchise in ways that are like remarkable.
Yeah.
Case, you're like an upbeat
like,
sadist.
But that's what I'm getting at. Like, this is the kind of movie that is perfect for the show.
You're gonna love what I torture you.
There's good special effect work that is nostalgic and fun, even if you can see the wires and even if the models aren't perfect. Like, there's, you know, actors who we enjoy watching on screen. You know, the fact that most of the main cast I can name off the top of my head. It's Christopher Lambert, it's Sean Connery, it's John C. McGinley, Virginia Madsen. That's actually like kind of nice seeing them all there. Like, the act, like, the leads have like charisma that we enjoy. It's fun seeing some of this, and it's an interesting thought experiment to see how many versions and how different they could possibly go, because like the special edition is actually a lot better than the actual cut. It's still not great, it's still not good, but it's a lot better.
They're still locked into all the stuff that they had to work with, and it's like trying to fix your house after it's been set on fire. It's like with only like the tools you buy from Home Depot. You can do it. It's just really, really, really hard. So
speaking of, how are we gonna fix this?
So let's take a break
Jason, hold on, Jason.
Yeah.
I told Jesse I didn't have a thought. I had some bits and pieces, but because of some of the great comments in this discussion, I think I may have a solution that isn't just watching the
All
anime.
right.
Okay.
Stay tuned for after the break.
Okay, I figured this would be a team effort because fuck. So we'll take a break and we'll come back and we will find a way to fix this mess.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
So that's what happened with Sean Connery. Somehow Palpatine returned.
Hi, I'm Seth. I'm the host of the show you're watching right now. I had to sit this episode out, but I was called out as a coward for not watching these movies, and I want to attest that I watched not just the second one, but the first one to make sure I had context. And so now I want to see if I can sum up in 90 seconds. We're retconning the first movie. They're not humans. They don't just naturally appear as immortals on our planet. And the telepathy that he got from the last movie, gone. So we find out that he's from a planet called Zeist, and it's very Dune-esque, and gets bonded to Sean Connery. That's why he's able to bring him back to life, although I guess with a quickening wish, I don't see why he couldn't anyways, because apparently Earth is where you get sent from Zeist to be immortal, killing each other off until there's only one, and then you get to choose to stay on Earth as immortal or come back. Well, Connor McLeod doesn't know any of this because Sean Connery didn't explain any of it in the first film because none of this was invented for the first film. We instead follow a character named Louise as she's trying to take down a shield that's surrounding the Earth to keep out radiation. Now, the radiation has dissipated, but a corporation stands to lose money if this information is to get out. She needs to convince Connor McLeod to help while he's being hunted down by General Katana and his two owl men? Question mark? This launches the two plots in together. Of course, our villains sign up together to be a corporation in Katana, which doesn't matter anyways because they've already found the evidence that the radiation's not there. So they go and they take the shield down by killing the bad guys. There was no reason for the plots to intersect. The alien thing doesn't have to happen at all for the that's Highlander 2. That's it. That's Highlander 2.
Okay, we're back. So I now have alcohol
Cheers.
because I have to.
To Zeist.
Cheers. Yes.
Free people of Zeist. Cheers.
Yeah.
I can only do water to keep
It's just,
For Zeist!
For Zeist!
Oh, God.
Does anybody think this movie's ever going to get like some kind of a weird cult following like 50 years from now being like, yeah, that's kind of
I think
goofy
it has
and
potential.
ridiculous?
Before we started recording, I was saying one of the reasons why I have revisited, particularly the theatrical cut as much as I have, is that a pre-YouTuber, a blipper, if you will, Spoonie.
Oh, that's going way back.
Did a video on Spoonie Experiment.
Wow, man.
That was a very lengthy breakdown, scene-by-scene review of the movie, and it's actually pretty funny. I've shown it to people who are only marginally familiar with it, and they're like, oh yeah, that's pretty funny, considering that they know the original Highlander, and this one is like, they've always heard was bad. I'm like, do you want to see how bad? Here's how bad. So that's actually a pretty good video that is out there, and there are, like, Highlander is a weird show in terms of it having a fan community. Like, we're out there, but it's not like coherent or anything like that. Like, there isn't like, it's not like Star Trek or something where like there's going to be fan conventions, but like there are a lot of people who like the property a lot, and like this movie again is not the worst of them in that way that it has like a little bit of a cult following because like the shots are watchable. It's not as terrible as it could be.
It's in focus. It's got good sound. It's from a technical standpoint, it is a movie.
So it's not
it's not the Source where it's filmed against the fucking green screen.
It's the kind of movie where you can watch it, and if you're going in with the appropriate amount of THC in your blood, you're set.
I just shared with Hope today. There's a thing that somebody made. Let me find it.
Oh, like a 400-pound brownie?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a 400-pound pot brownie.
I saw that.
Yeah, and it has, in total, 20,000 milligrams of THC in it.
All I replied to him was, all yes.
Would you like to see God, my child?
All the yes.
So I think that
Yes.
just as it is,
All
particularly with all the
yeah.
different versions that you could watch, I think that the special edition is watchable enough where it's like, this is the really bad, this is the Ghostbusters 2 sequel to the original, and which is Ghostbusters 2 is
Yeah.
also a watchable movie. It's just not it's just nothing compared to the first.
Yeah, it's just the jokes aren't as funny, but it
Yeah,
tries.
and there's some
kind
good
of.
moments in that, like that you'll be like, oh yeah, that was a really funny scene, like when Egon is torturing the kids in as like for science.
Now let's see what happens when we take away the puppet.
Exactly. We've increased the temperature by 10 degrees every couple of hours. Like great
Egon just fucking
great
with
stuff
people
is in
is
that
the
movie,
best.
even though the movie as a whole is less. And this is also a movie that has like at least some interesting sequences and some good like I said, set pieces and stuff is going on with that. And if you really like Connor McLeod as played by Christopher Lambert, this is the only other time you're going to see like anything with that character where he's not just second to Duncan. So it's like, okay, well you know, minus the third one. So there's only so much of it.
After the third one, wasn't it after the third one was when
the
TV
third one
show
came
started?
out when the TV show was already going, but the third one doesn't acknowledge the TV show, and then the fourth one is the movie where they try to bring it all together, and it is bad. So I think that there is space.
It was the Marvel universe of the '90s, Jason.
I mean, I was so. I mean, I had a couple friends that were into this stuff, and I just refused. To me, it was like it's done after the first film.
Yeah,
Which is
I
the
was
smart
just saying
choice.
one and
But
done.
if you really like the first one, and
it's
you're
a smart
you're
choice.
okay with it, a sequel not ruining the previous movies, like I think that you have to have that distance.
The original still stands
Right.
alone on its own.
Sure, you can just watch it.
So in that regard,
As you should.
I think that this movie has potential to have cult following to it, and I think that there was potential from the get-go where it at least could have been interesting, because I think it has an impossible problem when talking about the entirety of the franchise, which is just that it's done or you're talking about the past. Like that's either the scenarios, because the first movie, it's over, and where do you go from there? And you can't. And this movie tries to go from there as opposed to either retconning in new immortals who for some reason didn't count the first time, or going into a period piece, which would have been really interesting, but that's not what they were doing with this movie. So if I may, let me throw out my notes. All right. So here's the thing. The alien stuff is something they're playing with, and they're playing around with it as a way of trying to explain some of the things going on here. And I don't like Ramirez being an alien. I don't like McLeod being an alien. But the existence of aliens by themselves are not automatically the worst thing ever. And
I see what you're doing. You're gonna make be like there's immortal aliens of another species.
That's where I'm going with this one.
Okay.
So on that note, my thought was, well, McLeod succeeded. He was the only one left at the end of the first movie of Planet Earth. There are other immortals out there. And maybe the reason why they're showing up now as opposed to at some earlier point is that the shield is starting to fail. Like we know that there's like a point where it's being pierced. In the extended cut, they actually go above the line of everything, and they can like see it all. And it's like, oh, actually, things are not that bad. I think that's an interesting starting point in terms of like, well, where could you build from there? And if you need to have some actual related pathos to the characters, well, guess what? You have a character named Ramirez in this movie who, as he's quick to point out, is not Spanish. He's Egyptian. And you could throw in some ancient alien shit if you wanted to there.
God damn it, where's Seth?
Like, you could actually have a situation where aliens did interact previously.
And biblical shit because it's
and the
Egyptian.
reason why stuff is consistent.
Was Jesus
You don't need to go that far because everyone does that kind of shit
Jesus.
anyway. Like, you know, like fuck, like the authority had the doctor and they revealed Jesus was one of the doctors. Like there's way like people lean into those kind of concepts. Jesus was a mutant in X-Men, or Kennedy was a mutant. You know, doesn't matter. If this is a sequel,
Santa's a mutant,
and they
in X-Men.
want to do a cyberpunk thing because Blade Runner is hot, then the way you play with it is you introduce immortals from a different world coming through. And then the way that this all works is rather than he's just all of a sudden back to being immortal the second they show up, is the first time he kills someone, it causes him to get a little bit younger, but he's still mortal. And then the second time he kills someone, and they're back to back on this one, he releases that energy, and that causes some kind of revenant of Ramirez to show up. Because Ramirez is living in him, and you could actually have his voiceovers kick in earlier in this, because at the end of the first movie, Ramirez is talking to him in the present context. It's not necessarily a flashback, because he has all of the immortals of Earth are living within him. He's absorbed all of their souls.
That's true. Yeah.
That's the whole thing. Like, pardon me. And maybe the interesting point here is that maybe the reason that the shield works in the first place, outside of him just being a random super scientist for no apparent reason, is they established in the first movie that he can work with people, that he can interact with people because he can read everyone's minds. This is like an immortal. Like, the first movie has all the stuff about being an immortal that they totally throw out in the later ones. Like, they can sync up their physiology to like animals around them. They are able, they're like, oh, I can read everyone's minds. I can grow old, have children, but I can also be a peacemaker between everyone. That's a really interesting take on this whole thing. And maybe he uses all the energy that's within him. He binds everyone together and brings them together to save the world from global warming, and uses the energy within him to actually start the shield. And so that's why the aliens haven't been able to come through in that time. And now that it's starting to pierce through, they're showing up. And so he's got the voices, but they're quieted. And the first time he has a quickening, they start to like be louder and louder. And this way, throughout the majority of the movie, McCloud is mortal but de-aged from where he was because he absorbed some energy, but he put a lot of that into recreating Ramirez. And so you have stakes for a good chunk of the movie as he fights more of them and gets stronger, so that he is able to be an effective, functional immortal later.
So he's like absorbing
right,
it.
Right. And I realize that this is the same thing they do with Wolverine in every movie they do with Wolverine, because you have to like set up some kind of stakes. But God damn it, why not? Like, have that here in this character who is functionally immortal. He, like, again, his energy could be the reason why the shield's up in the first place, and so he has to kill some immortals to get enough energy to break the shield in this case.
It's kind of like whenever they put Superman into a video game, they have to have some reason to depower him. Like, there's a red sun,
kryptonite fog, or
what? Like, they have
whatever.
to depower him somehow.
They have to have power scaling.
So we have a movie where we have the character slowly gaining in power over the course of it. And you could maybe even play around with the amount of energy he has stored in him based on like. And this can play into the whole Ramirez thing about everyone has like a certain amount of energy in their life and they let it drip out normally. You could play around with that component, and you could also set up that the reason the immortals are so similar is that this is a much larger thing. That there can be only one is then evidence of how they then shape their world. And in Katana's case, he took over his world, and maybe the reason he's coming for Earth is that he needs more immortals to kill because the energy can be used in some way.
Well, if there can, I would go into the idea of if there can be only one, it would be that's exactly. That planet's champion. And so then they all have to meet up, and then they have to
about Dragon Ball.
Well, sure. But
that's exactly what I was saying. It's Dragon Ball.
That would be fucking fun.
Yeah, it's tournament.
This is literally Dragon Ball Super, the universal tournament arc, where different dimensions and universes. There was like universe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and they're paired. All of these universes are paired, and they like
but the thing is, that is old as dirt as a story concept. Like, just having it be like here's an intergalactic society of swordsmen who come together to like battle it out because there's actually the balance of celestial power going on in relation to it all is kind of fun. But it's anime as fuck, and it's the kind of bigger circumstances that you would need to have if you're going to do a sequel to the first Highlander movie. Like, again, everything since then has either had to like remove the third act or change the consequences of the third act or retcon additional reasons for why it didn't matter in the first place. So that this way, if you're going to do a sequel, McCloud, who we see at least in the special edition, has become a worldwide known figure who was the spearhead of this project that saved the world, which is the promise of his power at the end of the first movie. And we actually say he did it, and humans suck, and that's why the Earth is like terrible now. But like he actually saved the world from humankind's own destruction, and he used up all the energy he had, or like the oomph of it all, to actually like save everyone, and now he can't do much more, and he sort of is stuck in this situation.
Reverse spirit bomb.
Yeah, I mean, again, like, yes, it's similar to Dragon Ball. It's similar to a lot of stuff. Like, this isn't, like, particularly novel concept, but at least it is an escalation of the scale of the franchise that plays with the first movie and makes it work for a larger kind of story arc for the characters. Outside, again, of fully retconning everything. And, like, should again, Ramirez and McLeod should not be from Zeiss. McLeod should know nothing about this. Yeah. Ramirez should be explaining it to him. Because if you're going to have a situation where, like, they came at an earlier point and this sort of, like, helped establish things, yeah, he's in Egypt. It's fun to have, like, inferences to that. Maybe show some flashbacks to Ramirez in Egypt. That would be really fun.
Well, the thing is, too, like, there's so many, like, theorists out there how, like, ancient Egypt was, like, an established ground for, like, aliens. So then, like, Ramirez could have been like, oh, well, I don't really know them, but in my passings through my homeland, I've encountered these signs. I believe this is so-and-so. Like...
He can make a joke being like, I've never met them, but they had amazing wine.
Something like that.
Just make a dumb joke
like have
like
a connection with the December facility or the shield control facility is a giant pyramid. So you could actually, like, tie in some of these, like, concepts of, like, how their energies work together. And again, at the end of the movie,
Jason's over here like,
we're trying, Jason. We're trying.
I'm waiting.
Taking what we have and trying to make it work. Because at the end of the movie, regardless of which version, Connor McLeod steps into this, like, energy field inside this pyramid and it blows up. Like, that's, like, have him... Yeah. Like, tie it all back together. Like, have this larger thing that's going on with it all. Have the collected knowledge of these, like, echoes that are in his mind. I mean, it's kind of Avatar The Last Airbender-ish, but you could have this idea that, like, there were going far enough back into the thoughts. And this part is just a thing about immortals. They absorb all the memories and skills of everyone that they've killed, which means that they keep cumulatively building up more power. He's seen some of this stuff all the way back. Yeah. And maybe Ramirez is the only one who can, like, articulate it, and Ramirez is too young to, like, properly explain everything, but, like, is able to, like, reference some stuff that he saw when he was younger back in the day. And, you know, we don't know that much about his passings. Like, there's, like, books and stuff that have, like, fleshed out his adventures, but we can, like, find out some more. Have some flashbacks to other periods besides Zeist. And, like, some of those are going to be fairly cheap. Like, Egypt, like, yes, ancient Egypt didn't really look the way Egypt in modern times does today, because it was way more lush, because global warming has been a thing for a long time. Even before you get into the man-made factors that are exacerbating it. But like, like you could play around with it all, and you could shoot scenes just in the California desert if you really need to. Like, exactly.
All the time
so, like,
Star
you
Trek.
can make
sure, why not?
a convincing flashback sequence there. You can, put it in a, some other environment, show some other immortals that, like, Connor is, like, dealing with mentally. And yeah, he can either resurrect fully Ramirez, or again, he could have Ramirez be more of, like, a spectral kind of figure that isn't fully there. He could be, yeah.
Oh,
like,
so he's a Force ghost. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, hell, he could be entirely inside of his mind. But, like,
oh, gosh.
Like, he could be entirely inside his mind, or he could be, like, fully manifested. And, like, I kind of like him being manifested enough that he can be an active participant, and that we can get the Taylor scene. Like, those are, I think, worthwhile bits there. But have, like, catalyst points for it. Like, we already have shots that indicate that he did a quickening, and using the power of the quickening, he resurrects Ramirez. You play with that a little bit. Say that the energy is actually finite, that what they're doing with it all requires some kind of flow and absorption, and work with that all, so that we have this, like, growing concept of there's a bigger universe out there for the champion of the first movie to continue on to, as opposed to, we're just going to reset the stakes.
Yeah. So, Jason.
I've been waiting for this.
I was waiting for a lot to be done. So there's 3 ways you can make another Highlander film. Number 1 is to completely redo it, which the anime already did it. So that's option 1.
The anime it states that it's I know you say it's a complete reboot, but here's the thing. The original film was 1571, something like that?
Something like that.
Yeah, but the anime takes place during the time of the Roman Empire. Mm-hmm. So technically it's a prequel and a sequel. It kind of just, you can still say Connor's story happens. It's just in this one little time frame. So I
disagree completely. I think it's just a redo. It's Madhouse anime. It's a redo.
Yeah, they just removed the constraints, because, like, they had.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it removes
Well,
the ending
Connor
of the first
being
movie,
specifically
they
from
have
like
to,
the period
you
that
know.
he was in, like you could go to an earlier Highland culture and it works fine.
Okay. So one, we're not going to redo it.
Okay.
So there's two ways. You can do sequel or prequel. So Case has put a ton of effort into sequel thoughts. I disagree with it on any level because to me, the movie ended.
Just no.
Just
The movie
mixed
ended
you.
with the end of the first film. So all the sequel talk, it never worked because it's a mess. So it's like to me, it's like trying to make something good on a flawed premise.
For
So
the
to
record,
me,
I agree that it is like the premise of the show is
A
over,
flawed premise.
but they wanted to make a sequel.
Yeah.
so to me,
Look, if
I'm
the
saying-
filmmakers themselves couldn't fucking fix it, we're trying to do God's work, okay?
So think about this, right? What did I tell you that I was curious about from the first film? I said, what happened to the African guy? Or
Yeah.
what was his
Yeah.
deal?
Yeah.
And one of you pointed out, well, there was a little bit of allies there. I'm more interested in that guy, right? Like, I'm like, what was his deal,
Yeah.
right? And I'm curious about the guy at the beginning of the film that, like, fought Connor in the garage.
Yeah, like
Plus,
what was his name? Like
Yeah, Amon Fazil.
Yeah. And then you
Fazil.
Amon
guys
Fazil,
were,
yeah.
like, rattling through all of Connery's, like he was in Egypt and Japan, and like if you really think about it, the only stuff that we really actually do care about, and I actually care about, is like, well, who were all these people and parties that were kind of building up? So to me, the movie I want to see is like, let's start with like some of these immortals, but add some different immortals that get killed along the way. It's like we're seeing the early rounds of the tournament, and we can see characters in Japan, Africa, Europe, wherever, right? And then see how they have these like weird things where are there other characters like Sean Connery? It's like Egypt to Japan to Spain was the, Africa to Russia to Australia or whatever, right? And to me, you could make a film that's just 3 or 4 of those things where it just is like a fighting tournament, but a movie in the past. To me, that's the story that doesn't muck up past the ending. But everyone seems to have this interest in these characters that just are like little tidbits.
Yeah.
So why not just say, forget the future, we're solved. Like, here's the end of Highlander 1, stop it. We're curious more about immortals that lived in whatever, ancient Rome, different cultures and civilizations.
I'm getting vibes of remember that movie Prey
I
came out of
actually just
recently?
saw it this week.
The Predator prequel. It's Prey.
So why not have immortals? Like, hey, you could have 2 immortals in like the Civil War, but like they're at like Antietam or something like that. Like they're going at it during like a Civil War fight or whatever. I don't know. Or some ancient Egypt or like the ones, whatever. And then maybe there's other bad immortals that are like kind of the rotten ones, and maybe they kind of have an alliance.
Like
right?
the people who like
you
sided
guys
with
had to remind me.
Kurgan.
Yeah.
Well, because you guys had to remind me. I'm like, why didn't the guy from Atwood? And you said, well, geez, Jason, remember, and I'm like, geez, you're right. Like, so were there these, like, I forgot about that. So to me, that's interesting. Like, how would those guys have had, like, look, we know we have to kill each other, but we can acknowledge that the 3 or 4 of us are, like, at least lawful good, and that there's 3 or 4 of these guys, if one of them wins, it's game over.
Right.
Like, what is that like? Hey, we're all friends, but eventually one of us may have to kill.
Yeah, I mean, do a movie like if you're gonna call it Highlander, like, and keep the main character Connor nominally, like follow his story when he like supposedly, according to the show, he goes to France, and that's a way of explaining the accent. Like, have him go to France, have him encounter all these other immortals like over the course of it all, and like you could have some twists in there where you're actually like seeing him like when does someone violate some of these like alliances that they made, because it's kind of the Hunger Games in a lot of ways where it's like, we have to make sure that we're Battle Royale, but like it's the scenario of like, well, we have to make allies, but we know that we can't be allies for forever, so like play around with some of that, and then you could do flashbacks or voiceovers from Ramirez, because he's living inside, well, I guess he's living inside Kurgan at this point, so maybe not so much there, but like, hey, bring back the Kurgan.
Well, Clancy Brown all day long.
Kurgan's story? I mean, you know what I mean? Because he was like in Russia, but he was in.
Well, he's from the steppes of Russia, but like so are a lot of people.
Right, but I mean, to me, there's so. I mean, again, kind of like these things where people are like, "Ooh, what if someone did a Predator story in World War I, or what if someone did a Predator story, with feudal Japan?" Highlander is no different, and it's like, why not lean into the stuff that everyone likes, where it's like, let's put these guys in a battle royale across time, and then follow multiple characters, and then to me that's interesting. And I'm not normally a fan of prequels because to me it's always like I was on a podcast about Andor, so I sat and watched all of Andor. And geez, Jason, what'd you think? And I was like, I didn't care because there was no dramatic stakes. I know the ending.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I'm not. I tend to.
It was shot beautifully well, but you already knew the story.
A good show that I didn't care about the ending because there's no dramatic stakes. So normally, as a writer and a creative, I think that prequels have a lot of issues, but they can be done if they're done well, right? And Godfather 2 is like the classic example of one that you actually, people say it's better than the original. So to me, the Highlander story that I would lean into would be what is this battle royale? Because the alien, the time travel, I don't think any of that worked. And I think no matter how much you try to fix it, it's just like when I was listening to Case, I'm like, okay, obviously he's put a lot of work into this and he's thoughtful, but I'm like, none of it interests me.
Right.
But no matter, to me, it's such a flawed concept that no matter what we do to it, nothing would interest me. But I would be interested in seeing these immortals. Like, why do they have alliances? Who are they? And then how do they turn on each other?
Or even just seeing them cross paths on like major world events. Like,
sure.
You guys ever seen a movie called He Never Died?
Yeah.
With Henry Rollins?
No.
So basically, the premise of the film is that he's Cain from the Bible.
Okay.
And he lives in modern day, and he's very bored because he can't die because God has punished him for betraying Abel and killing him. So he eventually banishes him to Earth, took his wings, and now he lives on Earth and he's miserable all the time. And like he goes to bingo halls and plays bingo because it gives him something to do. Sure. Like he's so miserable.
Pornhub and he's done.
Yeah, he's seen the end of Pornhub. He's bored, nothing else to do. Yeah, and he indulges in cannibalism whenever it suits him. So it's an interesting movie. It's not perfect. It definitely has a cheapness to it, and there's some not so great acting. Stephen Ogg is in it, who played Trevor in Grand Theft Auto 5. That was kind of cool. But it's something like that where an immortal that's been around for so long that he's absolutely bored of existence just says, just fucking kill me. I would love to see a story about that guy.
Right, and I think that's where the strength of the Highlander story is. But again, why did they need to go to this future alien time travel where it's like, show me ancient whatever? I mean,
it feels
the
like
challenge is exactly what you're saying, which is that having it be a prequel when we know the ultimate outcome is difficult on paper to make interesting. And it's a steeper climb than just saying, can you come up with a new premise for the same characters to continue interacting with? But as we keep talking about, having the same premise when it was such a definitive end for that premise is difficult to be interesting also.
Right. So, or, if you go to the anime route, like if you said to me, like, okay, here's a different idea for a sequel. What if we just told the Highlander scenario, but like just now, maybe there's one where the Kurgan wins, right? Like I like the anime because to me, I didn't view it as I viewed it as a complete redo.
Right.
I didn't view it as this is like, to me, it was like, this is just the scenario, but we're going to play it out differently. And now you're talking like, is this a multiverse or is this just, I'm going to give you the concept, you write a script, you're going to play the Highlander tournament out your way. And maybe, the way you play it out is a way that's totally different than I would play it out. Where, does a good person win? Does a bad person win? Does a guy wins that doesn't care about anything? You know what I mean? So to me, that's another option of just, we're going to play the scenario out completely different.
Yeah.
But
I mean, there's plenty of stories about immortals. Like we've had a bunch recently.
Thank you for saying that, because I was about to be like, that's the
Netflix.
best Highlander movie that's come out since the original Highlander.
Yeah,
but it is basically
not a Highlander movie. Yeah. It basically is just a Highlander movie. Yeah. The comic is like it's fine. It's not great.
I didn't think about that, but you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, again, which is kind of like the concept, but this is a
different... I mean, like, can you imagine like a video game about the Kurgan? Like that would be really fun. Like having him like fight his way through history. There was supposed to be a Highlander game. Stuff, but.
Yeah, there was supposed to be a Highlander game, and it unfortunately got canceled because the production studio went out of business.
Case is right, because like my concept has no narrative stakes, which is my gripe towards Andor. But then I'm saying I don't have an interest after it because the ending was like, this is the complete ending. So it's a story that has no narrative stakes. There's no narrative stakes prior, and there's no narrative stakes forward.
But you can do it from a different perspective instead of the same perspective, and that gives it new life.
Yeah, and even if Andor himself isn't interesting because you know he dies in Rogue One, it's like everybody else around him, I don't know what happened to them. So it's like put the weight on them.
It was a competently produced show. So what I'm saying is, to me, that's your better bet than future, is to say, again, who is the guy Faisal? Who is the fellow from Africa? Who are they? And like what are their interactions? What were the groups of politics? To me, you've got a better shot with that than you do the future.
Yeah.
I just, it's just the alien time.
Sure.
Like, none of that stuff flies with me. I like when it's mysterious, where it's like we can't fight in churches and we're
I mean, like if it was Highlander, like the beginning, and it was actually Ramirez's story leading up to him meeting Connor, like maybe that could be kind of interesting because, like, we know what happens to Ramirez, but we also know he dies, so it can be like kind of sad. Like you could do a story with all that in a fun way, but they also weren't going to get Sean Connery for a full movie that way, like.
Yeah, wasn't his fee for
and
this
also he
film
came
like
back
$3
because he
million
liked
or
Christopher
something
Lambert.
Like
they like got along really well, so it's just like, oh yeah,
that was
okay,
it.
cool. Yeah, I'll come back. Like I'm not like I'm working off the Zardoz debt that I have to society right now. Yeah. But I mean, like, Jason, like what you're talking about, a lot of that is stuff that they do in the show. Like there is a lot of like discussion of the different alliances that Immortals make, and there's a lot of flashbacks to different periods that the characters go through. Like it's certainly like a very fertile ground for storytelling. The challenge is just like, how do you make this as a log line interesting when you know the outcome versus you've already expended the good faith of the premise, and now how do you keep it going? And I think both of those are just like very difficult spots to be in, considering that the first movie like shot so hard that like it's the end of the movie, like it's the end of the world you're in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when you're locked into a premise like that, all you can really do is a prequel or do like.
I mean, you could do like a politics movie about like Connor like trying to like unite everyone because he now has the prize, and like really go deep in that one. But that wasn't going to be the same idea of like sword fighting and so forth.
No.
Yeah.
And like I said, to me,
it can be an interesting story, but it wouldn't be a Highlander story. That's the thing.
I mean, to me, like I said, the anime was always kind of my like fun revisiting to the universe because I love Madhouse, and they were just like, here. And it was just like, okay, here's an anime version of Highlander. And I remember even when I bought it thinking it was going to be a sequel, then it was just like, oh, this is just kind of a redo. And I thought it was fun.
Yeah. And it's well animated. Looked great. It's really, really amazingly done. It's the only things that are carried over in that film are the fact that there's immortals around and the clan name of MacLeod. That's it. Everything else is completely new. So, which makes it functional. It's like it's taking just those kernels and using that to build a new world.
See, and I guess because I've watched a metric ton of Batman stuff, and Batman's gone in so many continuities and Elseworlds now that like, there's just that like to me that Highlander anime was no different. Like they just did a Batman animated movie where it's like Batman Ninja, where like all the Batman characters are like in feudal Japan and like
they kind of do that every now and again.
Hush, or like they did Gotham by Gaslight, where it's like Victorian era. Yeah,
and to me, I kind of viewed this Highlander anime as kind of like Gotham by Gaslight or the Batman.
A what if story. Yeah.
What's that? I'm sorry.
It's kind of like a what if storyline. What if we did this?
Yeah, I mean, and by that thing, it'd be cool to be like, what would be the what if or a Kurgan type one? Cool. I could get in. I mean, just to see what that would look like.
Yeah, and the one thing that is worth noting is that the whole cyberpunk thing is like in this film. A lot of you are saying it doesn't quite work. I mean, if you're going into Batman, it can work. Batman Beyond, you can work. You just got to do it right.
I
That's
thought
the thing.
cyberpunk part of the anime Highlander worked. Like that worked.
Yeah,
I didn't have a gripe with that.
Yeah, it's just the story that they put into it wasn't good.
Right.
Also, can I ask a question?
No.
Okay. So they go into this idea that they want to keep the shield up forever. Why?
Because they thought that it would never heal. That was their thing. Like, oh, this is permanent. They never expected it to like heal itself.
But didn't the company know that it healed?
They said two things that kind of support it. One is the amount of money. I think it's only in the extended cut where McGinley starts talking about how the company's going to go into Chapter 11 if the information comes out that it's been actually healed. But the other part of that is they say that it would take more power than that they have available to bring it down. Since I think the idea was that the shield was designed in such a way that it was drawing off the energy of the like massive amount of ultraviolet radiation coming in to continue powering it. Effectively, they created a perpetual energy machine. And so that there is some of that. And then there's like the whole, like in the theatrical cut, there's the whole like bit about like price fixing that they do for the shield. Like the shield concept is bad. like it's not good. And it doesn't make a lot of sense. There's a lot of commentary about modern America or modern capitalism taken to like a cyberpunk future level that is rough to fit together. And
it really wants to be RoboCop.
There's like a commercial in the like for like, here's the $55 gasoline. It has zero emissions.
Zero emissions, sure, of course. So I think ultimately the biggest thing to fix would be making the villain interesting. Because I've heard some things. I know you guys like Michael Ironside. I've heard some things about him, personal things from people I know on set. Apparently, he's been accused of sexual harassment. I would fire him immediately. So I would immediately kick him out the door. Pick another actor to play Katana.
Jesse Ventura.
Who was hot at this time? You want Jesse Ventura?
Sure, I'm just throwing out like
the body Ventura to show up as the new Highlander.
I mean, Dolph Lundgren would also be fun. Yeah,
Dolph Lundgren. There you go.
They shouldn't call him General Katana, but they need to lean into a villain who is different than the Kurgan. So actually, what they need is someone who's small and fast.
Yeah. Jackie Chan.
Yeah. Or actually give him the time.
Something different. Something different. Oh fuck!
This is 91.
Was this this before or after the Crow came out?
This was
Crow was 94, wasn't it?
He died. I think he died at 93 before the film came out.
Yeah,
maybe
well, he died on set. He died on set.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I mean, this could have been a star turn for him.
I thought it was 90.
Yeah. More than the Crow was. Damn.
Yeah.
Now I just got really depressed.
I'm kind of depressed about the Michael Ironside stuff. That's kind of
I'm just gonna go in a corner and cry now.
Yeah, somebody that I know that works in the film business said that he sexually harassed her on set. I know. Sorry,
yeah, there's some details that I'm
curious
about in terms of timing, like what specific, but because Schwarzenegger also like sexually harassed like everyone that was around, and so. Like the thing is where is the line that we're drawing on this one, and not saying that that we should.
You know what? Yeah. Let's go with my man Malcolm McDowell.
Yeah. There's that meme of who is the only problematic actor that exists in Hollywood, and it's just Keanu Reeves. That's the only one non-problematic actor in all of Hollywood. Oh man.
Is Ronnie Cox still okay?
Yeah, I don't think he's done anything
Ronnie
bad.
Cox too. Okay, you can make a film
or what if just John C. McGinley was the actual bad guy?
Just the main baddie.
Cast him as the
there's a good episode of the show where like some guy who's like just a Kurgan clone in the flashbacks has like started a business and now has like armed security with him all the time, and like he only does meetings on holy ground where he's like vulnerable, and otherwise he's got people like there with guns, and like you could do a scenario where someone who is in this corporate position by virtue of all the power that they have accrued by being an immortal has put themselves in this spot and is a big threat as a result. And so you could do action sequences that aren't just like one-on-one fights. You could actually do some of the types of sequences of like invading like a hostile force that has like weapons and so forth. And then just like get to the point where they finally have like their fight on top of the giant robot pyramid.
I'm fine with that. Yeah. Jason, what do you think?
What Keisha said kind of reminds me of why I was kind of hot and cold on Death Note. I thought Death Note was such a cool idea, and I'd heard so much really good about the anime, and then when I watched it, I was like, I'm very bored by this anime where it's just these kind of super smart sleuths, and I was like,
it was better as a manga. I didn't watch the anime, but I read it, and it was way better written on the page.
I guess I was hoping, like, to me, it's a weird concept, and then all I started thinking about when I was watching it was like, what would happen if we gave a 10-year-old kid the Death Note, or what if we gave a crooked politician the Death Note? Or
what if we gave your son the Death Note?
What if we gave him the Death? Like, to me, that was kind of what Keisha said about Highlander. Like, what if we start, again, which is more Elseworldy. Like, what if we had a guy that like got the power, but then like had this whole super, like he was using it for profit. You know what I mean? And then what would that, like, it's kind of like, what does this scenario play out like? And I guess to me, it's a very interesting concept. Kind of like I thought Death Note was an interesting concept, where it's like, but we're kind of stuck in this like one thing where it's like, what would it be like if, again, it was like, the CEO of company got it and then had this whole superpowered company around him to take advantage of his power and not use it to help society. Because that was always the big thing in the original one. Like, when you get the power, you'll be able to like help the world, and like you'll like Hope was saying, you'll be in tune with everybody, and you can understand everybody. But what if I got that and I was just a total jerk, or I just was using it to make money? Like, I'll manipulate the stock market because I can understand all of you. Like, that's interesting, But again, that's more of an Elseworld scenario than narrative at this point with what we've been
right.
doing.
I mean, I guess you could do something like the Watchers in the show, which are just the Watchers in Buffy, basically, where there's a society built around the existence of immortals that Connor discovers after getting the prize. And maybe they have ulterior motives, but then you're still not doing a Highlander movie. You're not ending in a scenario like they still want to get.
Yeah. It's an outsider's perspective.
Which could
on
still
a
be
Highlander
fun.
scenario.
Like, you could still have it be a big thing, but you're not getting into the thing people are coming back for, which is like Connor fighting someone with a sword.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we're kind of like circling everything at this point. We've got a bunch of different pitches here, a bunch of different ideas. Either stick with the futuristic stuff and try to just flesh it out. If you want aliens, do what Case said. If you want to do anything else, do a prequel, like Jason said. And it's either one, I think, works. Depends on your taste. I think either one could work if you had the right director attached to it.
Either way,
I will say either way,
just watch the anime apparently.
And Old Guard.
Just watch the anime. Yeah, the anime is and Old Guard. Yeah. Anime is actually free on YouTube. I found it. I just browsed on YouTube. The whole thing is there. There's a lot of shit on YouTube where people just forgot about these movies and they just dumped them online and no one takes them down. I don't know why. So, I will say with regard to Highlander, the TV show, so little story, back in college, one of my editing projects was I had to edit one of the fight scenes of one of the Highlander episodes, and it was the vampire episode, the fight scene in the stadium.
I have.
Have you seen that one, Case?
Or at least, yeah.
There's an episode where it's like literally a vampire, and
it was an immortal mistaken for a vampire, or just they introduced vampires? Because that's another thing you could do.
Right. I think it was,
which makes more sense in the context of the show.
But yeah, the idea was that you had to take the raw footage. We have actual raw footage, and we were just cut it together how you feel it fits together best. And everybody did different versions. It was like, this is how this person edits it. That's how that person edits it. Not everybody did it great. Some people did it really well. Some people just sucked at it. I think mine was like fine, But then we actually saw the original episode, and we're like, wow, that's like really simple. And we realized, oh, that's right. You only have 7 days to make an episode. That's why.
Yeah.
So just TV shows back then are just like,
yeah,
you got 22 episodes, shove them out the door. Like, it's just very cheap. Very cheap. So yeah, we did it, guys.
We made it.
Yeah.
We did it. 0%er. This will never happen again.
Are you
no
sure?
more zeros.
Are you sure you're not going to be a sadist again, Jesse?
I don't think I have any other 0%ers on the show.
He just said, what's diced? It didn't catch on with the kids, apparently.
Yeah, there's no action figures of any of those guys on that planet. Weird.
But
Interesting.
so you don't want to do like a Jaws 4?
They did do Jaws 4. It's called
No,
Jaws the Revenge.
No,
Yeah.
I'm
It's
saying
really,
that's a
really
zero
bad.
presenter.
What do you want to do with that one?
I mean,
I'm just saying.
The novelization says that it's a voodoo god that like made the shark come after the Brody family. I swear to Christ, that's what they said. It's so bad.
I think the big challenge with this one
Anywho.
versus any other 0%er is that we all agree it's a bad movie, but it's also an impossible premise to continue with.
Yeah. It's just, you're stuck. You're stuck no matter what with this original film. You just have to like reshape everything. So yeah. Thank you, Case, Jason, Hope. Thank you for enduring this one.
Yes.
And I'm sorry.
Mini-Me is now free.
Yes.
We're going to Back to the Future tonight at 7 o'clock.
Speaking of time travel.
Nice. Speaking of time travel.
So he's never seen it. Guys, any thoughts for him on Back to the
It's
Future
fantastic.
tonight?
You're going to love it, bro.
Perfect movie. It's perfect.
I'm holding one sword.
Wait,
Are you
is
gonna
there
show
a
him-
Back to the Future where they go to Zeist?
Oh, God.
There's a bunch of stuff in the cartoon show. I don't remember much from it.
Another cartoon from the 90s, yeah.
We're going to cut this now, guys.
Oh,
Yeah, we're gonna go down another rabbit hole. We're gonna end it here. So thank you guys. All right. Jason, everything you have coming out, what do you have? Go ahead and do your plugs.
So I'm working on my next comic book, Lords of the Cosmos 5. So there's a pre-launch link on Kickstarter. I will send that to Jesse. He can put it in the links to the show. Otherwise, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Lennox Artist, and my website's jasonlennox.com, and I'm on Etsy at Lennox Art Emporium. So yeah, check me out anywhere. And if you like black and white science fiction comics from the 80s, you'll love Lords of the Cosmos. It's a lot of fun. We're gonna have it all done before I launch it on Kickstarter. So hope you guys
nice.
Looking forward to it.
Nice. And
yeah,
Case,
so
what about
I
you?
host
Anything
two
to plug
podcasts
right
and
now?
also there's a spin-off YouTube series, but all that can be found at certainpov.com. Another Pass is a show that is like this. We are on hiatus during the SAG strike, but we've got episodes banked, so as soon as the strike ends, we'll have more episodes for that. So excited for that to come back. Men of Steel is a Superman appreciation show. So if you like talking about superhero concept stuff, it's Superman and Superman adjacent. So we'll do like Invincible or things that are like inspired by Superman. So check out that.
Yeah, I've still got that irredeemable.
Yeah.
Omnibus over there. I gotta get
It was fun
back to
actually meeting you in person and at Third Eye Comics and being able to pick up some comics together. But those can be found at certainpov.com.
Yeah.
And if you're on YouTube, you can go over to Certain POV Media, where you can find my series Superman Analogs, where we talk about characters who were inspired by Superman and what's kind of interesting about them. So the most recent one I did was on a character from a prose piece. So I had to do a lot of work to make that visually interesting and not just be like, in the book, they describe him as having a yellow shirt. So check that one out. Again, if you're looking for Certain POV, that's where you'll find all the stuff I'm doing.
Excellent. And I think that brings it to an end. We did it. Yeah. I really wish Seth was here because I really love hearing his plot breakdowns. Because it's when he had to break down, was it Terminator Salvation? That was the funniest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Oh, Mini-Me has gotten to the Terminator series, and he saw the 5th and 6th ones first.
Oh, no.
Went back and watched the first 2, and he's like, these are a lot like Terminator 5 and 6, and I'm like,
oh, no!
Oh, no.
Well, Terminator Genesis is a copy of one.
Oh.
All right.
Okay, we're coming to an end. You gotta show him 1 and 2 again.
I like to do the best.
Good choice. Oh, man. All right.
Guys.
Good night, everybody.
There should have only been one.
Bye.
Yes.
Yeah. 7 times.